quilts? Who sews in this group? 3. Okay. You see, I ain't holding my hand up either.
I got my machine back out, and I mean, he didn't want to do anything, and all of a sudden, it was just sewing like it just knew exactly what it was doing. So I said, okay, you just haven't been used in a while.
Yeah. I mean, I got so excited. And, like I said, I sew buttons on sometimes.
Yeah, me too.
And but I got so excited, that I made a promise to myself that I was going to make a quilt. And I will before I die. That's okay. Yeah, I know. I will before I die. There are certain things I want to do before I die. Make a quilt is one of them.
Bucket list.
And it doesn't have to be a big one.
Right. Oh, mine is going to be like a wall hanging, like that one. See that one on the end over there, that size?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, that's what I would start with. And see, the quilt that we made in season 1, it was supposed to be that size right there. But wait till you see it. Because the participants in the workshop had input and added, what was special to them. We were talking about what was special about, where we live in Appalachia and our community. And, so that quilt is the culmination of that. So my quilt, it's called my Journey Quilt. And it's going to be about telling the story of where I've been. So far, the material that I have, and it's going to have footprints. Like it's going to show my footprints going from one corner to the upper corner, indicating my journey. And my footprints are going to be out of this material.
Oh, yeah, that does look
sandy
sand
looking.
Yeah. Because I could really see my footprints, and I'm actually going to trace my feet.
Good.
Okay. So that's my footprints. And, of course, I love the trees. The trees, it's just something about the trees that, brings me peace, tranquility, and, I always, big trees. And you think about how long they've been around.
Yes, they have a spirit, definitely.
Yes,
God created them, which gives them.
And it reminds me of a time when I lived up on Oakhurst right out from my mom. And I was walking from my house to her house, which was right out there. And as I was walking, got halfway, and I looked across on the hillside, and all the trees, it was like all the trees were waving their leaves and branches. And they were waving in
Unison?
Thank you. With one another. And it's like, and I remember the scripture about how a creation, praises God, worships God. And it was like, wow. I was just, so I love trees. Trees have a story to tell.
Yeah, they do.
They can speak. And you think about all the history that they have seen, so
And the cool thing with trees is they're grounded with the roots, but they actually have done studies about how they can communicate with each other.
Yes.
Their root system.
Yes, I've read about that. I think that's amazing.
Sure is.
It's amazing. So trees have to go on my quilt. And so this will be a part of it, and I'll probably find some more different trees. Okay. I lived in the city, in Indianapolis and in Cleveland, so I have a brief city life. And I remember the first time I was in Cleveland, and I went downtown Cleveland, and I felt like the story, the country mouse and the city mouse. And that's what I felt like, country girl in the big city. And I remember downtown, public square, and I caught the bus, went downtown, and it was about noon, so all of a sudden, all these people come around the corner of the building down on Public Square. I mean, it was lunchtime.
Yeah.
It was lunchtime. But all these people, and here, this country girl, never been to a city, and in this big town, and all these people, it's like I felt like I was being rushed by a herd of buffalo.
Yeah.
But, yeah, the city. So, Pam showed me this. These are buildings that's going to be incorporated into my quilt. It represents my city, stick with the city. But one of my favorite places in Cleveland was the 9th Street Pier, Captain Frank's House of Seafood. And I would go down there, not the House of Seafood was my favorite thing, but going down there on that pier, and you're right there on Lake Erie, and it was just very peaceful.
Yes.
And but my mountains, they kept calling, come home, come home. And this piece of material, it's like a map, a layout of streets and so forth. And I thought that was really cool to go in, and because it kind of reminds me of a journey, traveling, and I love to travel. So I wanted to make that a part of my quilt.
Now you got the bird.
And now I got the bird. All right. So what do you think so far?
I think it's good. I think it's a good
I know.
concept.
Is it going to hang in the museum, or are you going to hang that in your house, or are you going to cover yourself with it?
That's a good question. It'd probably go in the museum. Yeah.
It's got too good of a story.
Yeah.
That's about you.
Yeah. So yeah, it'll go in the museum. I've got my mama's quilts at home to cover myself in. So.
There you go.
Good.
But I'm getting closer. And Kay tells the story of how, she when she was little, she would watch Mama. She would always be there watching Mama sew and quilt. And I never did. I didn't
Have it in.
take that. Yeah, I was always interested in writing. When I was little, I was writing a newsletter called Old Curse News.
Old Curse?
Old Curse.
Old Curse.
That's the street.
Old Curse.
Like the
Old Curse News. And one of the news stories was my brother went to the dentist because he had a tooth pulled, and it was some thing like that.
That's
but
cool.
just general, that was my interest, writing. So this is a challenge, and I'm gonna do it.
Yeah, you will.
One step closer.
And
You
you
are.
feel just like Katie feels today. She feels so proud. She's so happy that quilt's where it's at, And
Yeah.
I don't blame her. I know how it feels when you finish one. I haven't finished very many, but it feels good to finish them. Well, that's why
You
Lori.
finished your first one when you were here.
Yeah, I did.
Well, for me, it's gonna feel good just to start.
Yeah, that feels good too.
I've been walking by my sewing machine every day.
And you sit right there, buddy.
I'll be sitting in my easy chair watching TV. My eyes will look over there. It's calling me.
Uh-huh.
And one day I'm gonna quit walking by and stop. And there you go.
Yep.
All right.
And once you do, then you'll be like, ooh, what's the next project that
Yeah.
I'm working on?
Like we mentioned before, the art of quilting, it's a tradition. It's a tradition in the African American culture. It's a tradition in Appalachian culture, and they intersect. There's a lot of common grounds, and not only those two, but Native American, culture. Quilting, it just crosses all cultures, really. And throughout all of those cultures, there's a story that's being told with those quilts. But this quilting thing, I mean, it's something. It's like a, how do you say it? It's like a sorority. It stretches across regions, it stretches across states, you know, and it's a connection, you know, kind of a thing. And, you know, you think about, we'd say in the olden days, when our grandparents, our parents and so forth, you know, I see them sitting around the table and, you know, they're working on that quilt and they're talking, having conversation with one another. You know, they can be talking about what went on during the day, what their husbands were doing, what their children were doing, and but they're working on that quilt and they're talking about things that's going on in the community. We don't do that enough. Come together and talk about things that's going on in the community. But see, this kind of activity gives us an opportunity to do that. So, all right. So what I want to do is we're going to go around and everybody just introduce yourselves and just tell, you know, if you quilt, if you sew, if you don't, tell what you'd like to learn, okay, from the workshop, okay? All right, we're going to start right here. You do that.
Okay. I'm Jane O'Lincoln. I do not sew. I will do the ironing and the cutting. That's what I like to do. And I'm just interested in knowing the story behind the quilt.
Hello, I'm Susan Adams, and I'm very excited. I've always been a history person. I've always wanted to know about my culture and stuff, and to be a part of this. You know, even now I'm just smiling because I know the majority of you guys.
I know.
And we've as a community, we've been through a lot together. You know what I'm saying? And I'm just thankful that I'm here. And I saw, I can, if there's a split in something, I can put it back together, or, you know, and all that stuff. But whatever needs to be done. I'm that kind of person. If it needs to be cut, sewed, whatever.
You're here for it.
Yeah.
You said your mother sewed?
No, I got friends that sewed.
Okay.
Yeah, I got friends that, you know, sewed, and I loved their patterns and stuff. I got several quilts I got a big old, it's got a top on it. What's it called? Hope chest. Yes. I've got a big old hope chest full of quilts, like, you know, what people have made me. So, yeah. Yep.
I just feel the presence there. Well, I have quilted years. My first quilt was about the size of that sign. It was 9 square, and I learned how from my grandmother. I was 12 when I started staying with her, and she taught me how to put it together. And I was making my baby quilt when I was in the 8th grade, and I made that all matched up. And my first quilt was the Lone Star quilt, and I did that prior to going into my freshman year of high school. And so I will say that was about 67. I'll put it like that. Anyway, but I finished it, and it was my first quilt. Now, needless to say, it was quilting and crocheting and everything, but they all were destroyed in their fire of 2002. So I no longer have those quilts. But through the years, I helped my mother quilt. And the year before she passed away, I helped her finish the quilts for each of my siblings and get them all mailed away, except for my quilt. and which I'll just say it is still waiting on me to finish it. But that's how long I have been quilting, and I've enjoyed every bit of it. You know, from sitting in the middle of the floor with it hanging from the ceiling, and the youngins playing under the quilt, bopping it up and down. Get out on that quilt! You know, enjoyed sewing and the quilting part and the stories and what you did yesterday and what who was doing and, you know, fixing those pinto beans because they're on the big heater in the middle on the corner of the house while you're cooking. Everything is right there and you're sewing and it's all going on at the same time. So by the evening time, you know, everybody's ready to roll it up, eat supper, wash dishes, go to bed, and start it all over the next day. So quilting has been a major part of my life.
All right.
Well, my name is Kay. Everybody knows me. I grew up watching my mom quilt and sew, and so I kind of got everything from her. But she would sit and she'd have me iron things for her. That's how I started out, and then I learned a lot in Girl Scouts too because we had to earn those badges, you know. So we always worked on sewing and crocheting, and we never did knitting or anything like that. But embroidery. We did a lot of embroidery things. But I would sit and Mom would do her quilting by hand, and she'd put it in a quilt rack in the middle of the living room floor, and she'd quilt while she watched her soap operas, and I was watching soap operas with her, and I'd watch her and I'd help her turn the quilt when she got ready to turn it, you know, in the rack and everything. But I grew up basically watching my mom. I learned a lot from her. I never made a quilt though. I always wanted to make a quilt, but never made one until the last workshop. So I had no clue what I was doing, but the ladies here helped with the cutting and the measuring and all that. That was a big help. So, and it was just, I hadn't sewn for a while. You know, I made I make clothes. My mom does a lot of crafts, but my area was clothing. And so, but I hadn't made anything in a while. And then when the workshop came around, it's like that passion just sprung up in me again to sew and everything. And I said, oh, this is my opportunity to do a quilt. You know, the quilt that I've been wanting to do. And so, yeah, it was very exciting. It was emotional. When it's a part of you and it's coming from deep down, and then you don't want anybody to take it and just do anything with it, you know, and you kind of want to control it, you know, and, you know, so that's kind of how I got and a little protective of it. But that was my first quilt. It was like having a first baby, so to speak, you know.
Your baby will have a home in the museum when we open.
Somebody actually wanted to buy it. I was like, no.
Hi, I'm Clesta Walker, and I watch my mom make quilts and stuff, and I always want to make a quilt. So I happened to go over to Katie's house the other day, and she pulled out this quilt. I said, oh my God, that's gorgeous. She said, well, y'all get ready to start a quilting class. I said, I'm all for it. What time? I'm here.
And Clea, I'll share this with you that you know, when you get through, you're going to get excited. You're going to want to make a quilt when you get through with this, and know that you can come down here to this quilt shop, and because they have classes, and they will help you.
Yeah.
We have beginner
Yeah,
classes.
yeah.
And we do simple quilts.
They'll help you.
Rag quilts are real simple. And we have a Facebook page that tells you all the classes that we're having.
Even if you need to know how to thread a needle, the sewing machine like me, they'll help you.
Or you can come in anytime we're open. If you need help, sit down on the machine and we'll help you learn anything you want to learn or get something straightened out. People bring quilts in all the time here. And can you help me fix this?
And Sister Katie comes down here. She likes to come down here. And so, y'all can get together. Come down here for a couple hours, So, okay.
My name's Rebecca Cornett, Becky. I don't quilt, don't sew, but when I was in high school, I had home economics. So we learned how to sew there, threading the machine. And I don't know if you remember the A-line dresses. So you'd go down Watson's and get cheap material. Well, it wasn't so cheap, but you'd buy material and I'd make A-line dresses. And all of them was the same, but I never got the interest in sewing. We wasn't raised around sewing. You would think, with my mother and her sister, Lena, they worked in homes. So, and back in the day when we were all together, they were in the kitchen cooking, and guess where we had to go? We had to go outside. We had to go outside and play while they finished dinner. We couldn't, you just didn't stay around. And if they sewed, I never seen it. But being a part, I never seen Mother Carrie even make that quilt. Like I said, I told you the story about Coco throwing it in the garbage, and I went out there and got it. So I don't really know the story behind that. So as far as having a story behind a quilt, I don't have one, but being involved in this, it's an excitement. It's educational. It's just, and you feel like you live in part of your heritage, because that there are a lot of stories. Even my big mama going over there during the summer, I never seen a quilt that she had made, and I'm quite sure she made some. My point is that we were all outside playing. With so many kids, you wasn't in the inside of the house when people were sewing.
Grown people
When
Absolutely.
because like I said, she worked in white people's homes, and she would go to work sometimes when we came out from school. We come in from school because Quilt and I, the oldest, we were the babysitters, and Mom had to go to work then. What she did during the day, we was at school. But just knowing about quilting and sewing, I don't have a desire to make a quilt, but I love being part of. I love being a part of making the quilt or hearing the stories.
Yeah.
And hearing everybody else's stories. I just love that.
My name is Katie Glover, and I was born and raised right here in Perry County. And I went to school in Town Mountain and went to high school and lived to high school. And Miss Arnold, I think everybody probably, I don't know if y'all were young, knew Miss Arnold. She was my home ec teacher. And, but my mother and my grandmother, they had these quilting frames that you hang from the ceiling, and they would quilt and make quilts. And I would sit and watch them though, but I never did help them sew until I got in high school. And when I went to high school, I went to home ec, and Miss Arnold would teach us how to make quilts and how to make dresses and cook. And I loved it, so I'm so excited about my I love it. Because I'm making two right now, but I never, I always started to quilt, but I never made one and never finished it. So Pastor Emily came to my house one day, and she was talking about the quilting, and I just got excited to do that again, I have did that before because I have made dresses, and I made my son's shirts when they were small. And I used to sew a lot, until then recently I am just so excited about getting my quilts, and I don't know how to make the back of them. And then she came to my house and helped me thread my needle.
And we'll help you get that.
The needles needles are hard to thread for me though, but I thread them. So I'm just so excited. So I want you all to see the quilt that I'm started at whenever we all
All
So
right.
it's good to all to be together, and just share each other's thoughts and everything. And so I'm just happy that I can be with you all this afternoon.
All right.
Amen.
Before our last one here.
You got me excited.
This has to be a special place because
It is.
they make house calls.
For Katie.
For Katie.
Katie, yeah.
All right. Sister Vivi.
My name is Vivian Clemens, and I come here so I can learn how to sew. Now, I don't sew, and I don't cut the square because I don't put them straight. So I'll do the ironing. That's all it was in my family was sewing, knitting, crocheting, because that's all my mom did. My dad's sister did that. They even went and bought me some yarn. So when I get tired or want something to do, the yarn, all I knew how to do was whatever this was, the knitting. I could do that a little bit. And then I just stopped. I said, nah, that ain't for me. But in school, I took home ec, and sewing just wasn't for me in home ec. Now, my thing was cooking, because I did get a certificate for cooking at vocational school. So I'm here to learn. I want to know the story about this quilt.
All right. All right. All right. Let's see that quilt we've made.
That's beautiful, yeah.
That's what y'all did. That's y'all did. Y'all did that. That's pretty.
It's so pretty.
Oh, that's pretty.
That is.
I see why they want to buy it. That's absolutely beautiful.
Oh, that's pretty.
And we did not intend for it to be this big.
Right.
Right.
But as the story unfolded, it just grew. So.
The title of this poem is From the Cradle to the Resurrection by Sandra K. Jones. I was born in the cradle of civilization, the motherland, the land that flows with milk and honey, and the blessings from heaven continuously overflowed. I was born of a chosen race, a royal priesthood, a holy nation where Black kings and queens rule the land with strength, dignity, and grace, a free race. I rocked in my cradle, untethered by the treacherous winds and waves of this world, until that old red devil came along and stripped my crown away. I rocked no more in my cradle, untethered but bound and shackled on a journey to who knows where, and for who knows what, while my dignity was stripped away. I lay no more in my cradle, untethered, because that old red devil done changed my purpose, changed my name, and stripped my very soul away. Now I'm rocked and tossed on the restless sea, a watery grave, not knowing my destiny, to an unknown land, far, far, so very far away. No longer royalty, no more milk and honey for me, no more blessings from heaven for me. Once a somebody, but now a nobody, ostracized, criticized, minimalized, and capitalized on by a brother of another color in some strange man's property. He saw me, but didn't see me. His purpose was my sham. He beat me, but didn't feel me. His purpose was my pain. But God, thank God for hearing my cry and not passing me by. Thank God for being my way maker when I couldn't see my way. Thank God for my ram in the bush and the strength to push. Thank God for sending his lamb, the great I am. Thank God for his son, the Holy One.
Thank you.
Thank God for the 39 stripes that replaced my stripes and healed me. Thank God for his sacrifice, who paid the price to redeem my life. Thank God for placing my feet on higher ground and turning my story around. Thank God for lifting me out of the miry clay and placing my feet on a rock to stay.
Amen. Wow. I know. So much more.
Wow.
Thank God for my Savior who lifted me out of the darkness, for his undying love for me, for his joy, unspeakable joy, for his peace that surpasses all understanding, for his long suffering through hard trials and tribulations, for his loving kindness, for his unending goodness and mercy, for his faithfulness in remembering me, for his sacrifice. Thank God for redeeming my crown and restoring the royal bloodline, for the milk and honey that flows once again, for blessings of heaven that rain down once again, for redeeming my dignity and showing the world that I'm not a soulless nobody. I am somebody. I have a soul. I have a purpose. I have a kingdom destiny that's greater than any temptations of this world. No longer do I fear that old red devil, because I've been set free, bought with a price, redeemed, worthy of the sacrifice, no longer bound or shackled, no longer rocked or tossed on the restless sea, resurrected from that watery grave, sanctified and qualified to be a grand part of the great Master's plan. Thank God for the resurrection. Woo! Woo!